Hello everybody, Jacob from Bryn Mawr Film Institute here, and I'd like to say a few words to introduce our next film. Now, many of the titles that we've discussed in this series have come from past eras, but this week we'll be turning our attention to something more contemporary. That is 2010's Winter's Bone, directed by Deborah Granick and based on the book by the Missouri novelist Daniel Woodrell. To learn more about this and other film studies opportunities, please visit us at brynmarfilm.org. In Winter's Bone, Jennifer Lawrence plays Ree Dolly, a 17-year-old girl struggling to care for her ailing mother and younger siblings in the rural Ozarks region of southern Missouri. They are just barely squeaking by, but they find themselves facing total destitution when Ree learns that her absent father, who is involved in the drug trade, has staked their family home as collateral for his bail bond and then disappeared. And so Ree sets out to find her missing dad. Now, this was Deborah Granick's second feature film. She made her debut in 2004 with Down to the Bone, a drama about a working-class mother struggling with drug addiction. And Winter's Bone would continue Granick's exploration of characters and communities on the margins of American society. Now, this is a theme that has really developed into the central thrust of Granick's work, and it would guide her two subsequent films as well, the documentary Stray Dog and the feature Leave No Trace. But in her early career, before she began making commercial movies, Granick earned her living shooting industrial safety films for labor unions. And she credits this experience of capturing people in their workplace routines for teaching her the fundamentals of directing. So I bring this up because in Winter's Bone, I think you'll be able to detect this documentarian's eye at work in the attention that's given to the habits and tasks and textures of this community's day-to-day life. Indeed, even though Winter's Bone functions more or less as a mystery thriller, it's grounded by a sort of ethnographic impulse, and Granick and her team went to great lengths to make the setting feel tangible and authentic. The film was shot on location in southern Missouri, close to the Arkansas border. Much of the clothing worn by the characters came from local people. The homes that you'll see, both the interiors and the exteriors, were local residences, and many of these properties had animals living on them, which the production team left to roam free as they filmed. Also, many of the smaller roles were played by performers from a nearby actors' workshop, or else were cast with residents recruited from the area, and other local folks were brought on to advise on various regional details. Now, I want to mention one of those people in particular, the musician Meredith Sisko, who acted as a music and folklore consultant for the film, and who you'll see singing in a scene set at a house party. Now, I single out her contribution because music plays a striking role in Winter's Bone, and it comes to bear in a variety of ways. In one respect, it's used to frame the story almost as one might frame a folk tale. During the film's opening shots, when we hear Sisko sing, "Way down in Missouri where I heard this melody," she might as well be saying, "Once upon a time in the Ozarks." What's more, in Winter's Bone, music serves as one indicator of the ways that this community remains deeply connected to the culture and traditions of the region. Throughout the film, we'll hear characters playing and listening to bluegrass, old-time, and mountain gospel music. And the score was composed and recorded using instruments common to the region: the fiddle, the mandolin, the guitar, and the banjo. So let's talk about the banjo for a minute. Prior to Winter's Bone, the most famous banjo scene in cinema was probably from the 1972 film Deliverance, where the instrument is played by one of the hostile hillbillies who terrorize the city slicker protagonists. And since then, the instrument has been kind of a loaded symbol to the point that Granick has had reservations about featuring it. "The banjo is like the mark of Cain," she said. "It's the harbinger saying, 'You will now be dismembered by crazy Ozark men in the woods.' But we wanted to say, okay, it's time. Deliverance can only hold its grip for so long. The banjo doesn't have to mean something dark. It can re-signify." And indeed, the instrument is included not only as a sonic element, but it turns up figuring as a prop in a significant scene. So both the original novel and the film adaptation of Winter's Bone have been characterized as country noir. And to be sure, you don't need to squint too hard to make out the contours of the detective narrative in Research for Her Father. But beyond its appropriation of certain noirish plot conventions, Winter's Bone also touches on some of the genre's recurring thematic motifs. And in particular, I want to mention the theme of fate and fortune. So, traditional noir frequently possesses a fatalistic bent, with characters striving, often in vain, to avoid an outcome that seems predestined for them. And they seem to be conveyed toward this end by forces beyond their control, whether those be external circumstances or internal compulsions. So there's an element of this in Winter's Bone, but the forces that threaten to sweep up Rhee and her family are specific to the conditions of their community. And let's try to articulate a couple of those. So certainly some of these forces are socioeconomic. We'll observe here many of the malfactors that bear on deindustrialized Middle America, from sparse job opportunities to an addiction epidemic to an education system that seems pretty wanting. All of which make it easy to understand how someone in this world could end up dispossessed, caught in a cycle of poverty, or involved in an illicit economy. And for Rhee and her family, this has both material and moral stakes. That is to say, she's not only trying to avoid slipping into economic ruin, she's also trying to prevent herself and her family from being hardened beyond the point of humanity. In the novel, Woodrell writes, quote, Rhee's grand hope was that her siblings would not be dead to wonder by age 12, dulled to life, empty of kindness, boiling with mean. So many Dolly kids were that way, ruined before they had chin hair, groomed to live outside square law and abide by the remorseless, blood-soaked commandments that govern lives led outside square law. Now, the novel and the film are separate works, but I share that passage because it does a good job of articulating a thread that I think you'll see in this story, and also because it notes the significance of the familial identity. This is a world where family is deeply important, and the Dolly clan are an established and somewhat notorious one in the area. So Rhee identifies herself as a Dolly bred and buttered, but this affiliation is kind of double-edged. On one hand, the extended family acts as a sort of support network that helps her stay afloat, but on the other hand, it also comes with a set of obligations that sets her apart from the rest of society and commits her to certain customs, values, and duties. So there's a sense here where kinship itself acts as a form of predestination. Now, I'll conclude by saying a few words about the performances. We'll see some memorable work here from a number of character actors, including John Hawkes as Rhee's menacing uncle Teardrop, and Dale Dickey as the family matriarch Mirab. But the most significant performance is undoubtedly the central one, by a then 19-year-old Jennifer Lawrence. Now, prior to Winter's Bone, Lawrence was not well known, but this role would be her breakout. It would earn her a nomination for Best Actress, and of course we know her now as an A-list star. And to me, one of the things that's so remarkable about her performance here is how stoic and restrained it is. And some have suggested that the reason it made such an impact is because it embodies a response to the 21st century's atmosphere of continual crisis. Writing in the magazine Film Comment, the critic Shoni Enelo noted that, as Rhee, Lawrence, quote, shows us the micro-responses of one engaged in unspectacular strategies of survival, trying to get their minimal needs met by any means necessary. Lawrence's characters don't arrive at emotional release or revelation. Rather than fight to express themselves, her characters fight not to. So you can find Winter's Bone on most major rent-to-stream platforms, and I hope you'll check it out. It's a really rich film, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about during our discussion. I look forward to seeing you there.